the campsite that wasn't on the map. I never planned to stop at the campground. I was driving through northern Michigan late in October, chasing fall colors and empty roads. My phone had lost signal an hour earlier, and the sun was already bleeding into the trees. When the rain started, it came down hard, like the sky had been holding its breath all day just to drown me at once. I saw the wooden sign suddenly, half rotted, leaning toward the road. It read, Black Pine Campground, 2 miles. I hesitated. The sign looked old, too old. No reflective paint. No modern logos. Just carved letters filled with peeling white. But my gas was low, my clothes were soaked, and the road ahead disappeared into fog. 2 miles felt safer than driving blind through the storm. The turnoff was narrow, barely wider than my car. Pine branches scraped the sides as if the forest was closing behind me. The deeper I drove, the quieter everything became. Even the rain faded, like it was afraid to follow. That's when my radio shut off. The campground appeared all at once. No gate. No office. Just a clearing with maybe 12 campsites arranged in a rough circle. Every site had a fire ring. Every ring was cold. And every single campsite was empty, except one. A tent stood at Site 7. It was old canvas, army green, sagging in the middle like something heavy had been pressing down from the inside. No lantern. No fire. No movement. I parked slowly, gravel crunching too loud in silence. I remember thinking how strange it was that the tent looked occupied, but abandoned. I got out of my car and immediately regretted it. The air smelled wrong. Not pine. Not rain. It smelled metallic, like wet pennies and rust. My boots sank slightly into the mud, even though it hadn't been raining long enough for that. Somewhere in the trees, something snapped, not a branch falling, but a deliberate break. Hello. I called out. My voice felt too small out there. No answer came, but I swear the tent shifted. Just a little. Like someone adjusting their weight inside. I told myself I was tired. Seeing things. I went back to my car and grabbed my flashlight. When I turned back toward the tent, the zipper was open. Wide open. Black inside. No gear. No sleeping bag. Just darkness swallowing the beam of my light. I hadn't heard it unzip. I hadn't heard anyone move. That's when I noticed something worse. There were footprints around the tent, but none leading away from it. They circled the campsite over and over, pressed deep into the mud, like whoever made them had been walking in loops for hours. I decided to leave. I didn't pack. Didn't even close my trunk properly. I got into the driver's seat, turned the key, and nothing happened. The engine didn't even try. The dashboard light stayed dark, like the car itself had died the moment I chose to run. Behind me, something exhaled. Slow. Wet. Close enough to fog the back window. I didn't turn around. A knock came from the roof of my car. 1, 2, 3. Each knock was spaced perfectly apart, patient and calm, like whatever was outside knew I couldn't go anywhere. My phone vibrated in my hand suddenly, making me flinch. No service, it read. Then the screen changed. A map loaded, offline. And there was no campground anywhere near where I was parked. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, staring at the phone. The offline map showed only forest, no roads, no campground, no clearing. Just an endless green blur where I shouldn't exist. The GPS dot pulsed once, then vanished entirely. My phone went black, like it had given up on me. Another knock came. This one wasn't on the roof. It was on the driver's side window. Slow. Careful. Knuckles dragging slightly at the end, like whoever, or whatever, was knocking head joints that bent the wrong way. I finally looked. There was no face at the window. No body either. Just the impression of something tall standing too close, blocking the moonlight completely. The glass creaked inward slightly, bending more than it should have without shattering. I could see fingerprints forming from the outside, long and smeared, as if the skin was soft, unfinished. A voice whispered then. Not through the window. Inside the car. You parked in my place. It didn't sound angry. It sounded tired. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. I shook the steering wheel, slammed the ignition again. This time the dashboard flickered, just once. The radio burst to life in a wash of static. Then a man's voice cut through, calm and clear. Campers are advised to stay within their designated sites after dark. I didn't recognize the voice, but it sounded official. Park ranger calm. Safe. Then it repeated. Campers are advised to stay within their designated sites after dark. Behind me, something scraped along the trunk. I threw the car into reverse. The engine roared awake like it had been waiting for permission. Gravel sprayed as I backed up fast, too fast, and slammed into something solid. Metal shrieked. The car jolted forward. I looked in the mirror, expecting a tree. It was the tent. Site 7 was behind me now, impossibly close. The canvas was stretched tight against my bumper, bulging outward like something inside was pushing back. The zipper flapped open and shut, even though there was no wind. The smell of rust flooded the car again. I didn't think. I just drove. I swerved around the tent, tearing past empty campsites, headlights bouncing wildly. The campground exit should have been straight ahead, but the road curved. Then curved again. Trees closed in tighter, branches slapping my windshield like reaching hands. My speedometer climbed, but the forest didn't blur. It stayed sharp. Too sharp. Like the world wasn't letting me leave fast enough. That's when I saw the same campsite sign again. Black Pine Campground, 2 miles. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded to a stop inches from the sign. My breath came out in white clouds inside the car, even though the heater was blasting. I looked at the clock. It was still 6:17 p.m. The same time it had been when I first turned off the highway. From somewhere deep in the trees, multiple footsteps began approaching, not running, not walking, shuffling, syncing their pace to my breathing. Then the radio spoke again. "You've already checked in." I screamed and floored it. The sign shattered as I plowed through it, wood splintering across the hood. The forest finally blurred. The trees thinned. And suddenly, headlights hit pavement. I burst out onto the highway. I didn't stop driving for 3 hours. When I finally pulled into a rest area near dawn, my car was coated in dried mud. Pine needles were packed into every crevice. And carved deep into my trunk, through the paint and metal, were words I never put there. Site 7. Occupied. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I smelled rust and wet canvas. I kept seeing the tent pressing back against my bumper, like something inside had learned the shape of my car. When morning came, I convinced myself it had been exhaustion. A panic episode. Something explainable. That belief lasted until I opened my trunk in daylight. The words were still there. Site 7. Occupied. They weren't scratched. They were cut, deep enough to catch my fingernail. Around the letters, the metal had browned slightly, like it had been exposed to blood instead of air. I reported it to a state trooper. He listened politely, nodded, asked if I'd been drinking. When I told him the campground's name, his expression changed, but only for a second. He said there was no Black Pine Campground in that county. Never had been. He suggested maybe I'd confused it with a private site or an old logging road. Before I left, he asked one question that stuck with me. "Did you see the tent?" I asked him how he knew about the tent. He didn't answer. I spent weeks trying to forget. Then curiosity won. I searched county records, archived maps, newspaper microfilms. I finally found a mention from 1989. A short article buried deep in a local paper. 7 campers missing at remote woodland site. No suspects. No bodies. Just abandoned cars, all parked in a rough circle. All trunks carved with the same words. Site 7. Occupied. The land had been closed off shortly after. Official reason: unsafe soil conditions. Unofficially, locals said the forest didn't like empty spaces. I reached out to one of the survivors. There was only one. He was old now, living in assisted care. When I mentioned the campground, his hand started shaking so badly the nurse had to steady him. He whispered just one sentence before refusing to say more. "It wasn't killing us," he said. "It was assigning us places." I asked what happened to Site 7. He looked straight at me. "Site 7 never leaves." I thought that was the end. Until last week. I was driving home late again, different state, different road, when my GPS rerouted unexpectedly. The signal dropped. Trees closed in. I felt that same pressure in my chest. Then I saw it. A familiar wooden sign, freshly painted but carved in the same old letters. Black Pine Campground, 2 miles. This time, I didn't slow down. As I passed, my radio turned on by itself. "You're still checked in," a voice said softly. I didn't look back. The desert campground that called our names. We chose the desert because it was supposed to be empty. No trees to hide things. No shadows to move on their own. Just flat land, open sky, and stars bright enough to make you feel small. There were 4 of us, me, my brother Luke, and our friends Jenna and Mark, driving through southern Utah in early summer. The heat followed us even after sunset, clinging to our skin like it didn't want to be left behind. The sign appeared suddenly, glowing in our headlights. Red Wash Campground, no services. The campground sat in a shallow basin surrounded by rock walls. Only 3 campsites. No ranger station. No cell service. The place felt older than the road that led to it. Wind slid through the rocks, making a low, hollow sound like breathing through a cracked mouth. We picked Site B. While we unloaded gear, Mark joked about how quiet it was. Too quiet. That's when Jenna froze and asked a question none of us were ready for. Why is there a fire already burning? She was pointing to Site A. The fire was low and steady, not crackling the way a normal campfire does. No tent. No chairs. No cooler. Just flames burning like someone had stepped away and never come back. Luke called out, his voice echoing strangely off the rocks. Hello. The echo came back wrong. Delayed. Stretched. Not matching his voice at all. We decided to ignore it. Desert campers pass through all the time, we told ourselves. But as night settled fully, the fire at Site A didn't die down. It didn't change. It burned at the exact same height for hours. That's when we heard our names. It started with Mark. A woman's voice drifted across the basin, carried on the wind. Mark. Soft. Close. Too close to be echo. Mark laughed at first, thinking it was a prank. Then the voice spoke again, this time from a different direction. Jenna. We all went silent. The voices never came from the same place twice. One moment they whispered from the rocks. The next, from behind our tents. Always using our names. Always sounding like someone we trusted. That's when Luke whispered, none of them are saying my name. Luke was right. The voices never said his name. No matter how long we waited, no matter how quiet we stayed, they skipped over him completely. That alone should have told us something was wrong. Instead, we sat there listening as the desert kept whispering to the rest of us, testing how close it could get without being seen. Mark. This time the voice came from behind our car. Mark stood up before anyone could stop him. That's my sister's voice, he said, pale and certain. She lives in Arizona. No one followed him. We just watched as he walked toward the dark, the firelight shrinking behind him. He didn't get far. Maybe 30 feet out, the sand shifted beneath his boots. He stopped, confused, and looked down. The ground was covered in footprints, dozens of them, pressed deep into the sand, all facing inward. All circling one spot. But there were no footprints leading to that circle. Mark backed up slowly. Then the voice said his name again, right next to his ear. He screamed and ran back, tripping, scrambling like the ground was pulling at him. When he reached the light, we saw the marks on his ankles, red, finger-shaped bruises, already darkening. We decided to leave. No discussion. No arguing. We started throwing gear into the car, hands shaking, moving too fast. That's when Jenna screamed. She was staring at the ground between our tents. Footprints had appeared there too. Bare feet. Child-sized. They pointed towards Site A. The fire there flared suddenly, brighter than before. In the flames, shapes moved, thin silhouettes stretching upward, bending unnaturally, like heat itself had learned how to stand. Then a child's voice spoke clearly. Why won't you come play? Luke grabbed Jenna and dragged her to the car. The engine wouldn't start. Of course it wouldn't. The dashboard lights flickered, then went out. Around us, the desert came alive with sound. Soft footsteps circling, sand shifting, whispers overlapping each other. Not screaming. Not threatening. Inviting. I heard my mother's voice. Jenna heard her best friend. Mark heard his sister again, crying this time. Each voice came from a different direction, pulling us apart without touching us. Only Luke stood still. They don't want me, he said. They want you. That's when we heard something walking out of the fire. It didn't walk like a person. Its legs bent too many times. Its head hung low, swinging gently, like it wasn't attached properly. As it stepped onto the sand, footprints formed, but vanished seconds later, erased by an invisible wind. It stopped halfway between Site A and us. Then it spoke, using all our voices at once. You stayed. The car suddenly started. Luke didn't wait. He slammed the gas, tires spinning wildly before catching. As we tore out of the campground, I looked back once and saw multiple figures standing where the fire had been, watching us leave. All of them smiling. We didn't talk as we drove. Not because we didn't want to, but because every time one of us opened our mouth, the radio crackled like it was listening. The desert highway stretched on forever, the stars fading as dawn crept in. When cell service finally returned, all our phones buzzed at once. Missed calls, voicemails, all time-stamped within the last hour. From people who were asleep when we left. Jenna played hers first. It was her best friend's voice, half asleep, confused. "Hey, you called me. You kept asking where I was. You wouldn't answer when I asked who was with you." Mark's hands started shaking. He played his voicemail next. It was his sister, crying. "You told me to come to the desert. You said you were lonely. You kept saying my name." Luke hadn't gotten any calls. Not one. We split up after that. Not dramatically. Just quietly. None of us wanted to be alone with someone who might hear our voice when we weren't there. I went back to my apartment and tried to sleep. That's when I noticed sand in my shoes. I hadn't worn them since the trip. When I dumped them out, something fell with the sand. A small, smooth stone, warm to the touch. Carved into it were the words, "Site B." A week later, Mark went missing. His car was found parked at a rest stop outside Phoenix. Doors open. Phone on the seat. Playing a voicemail on loop. His own voice. Calling his sister's name. They never found footprints. Just disturbed sand in a wide circle around the car, like something had waited there a long time. Jenna stopped answering calls after that. The last message she sent me said, "I moved. New state. New number. No camping. No deserts. No places where voices carry." For a while, it worked. Then last night, I dreamed of firelight and red stone. I woke up with grit between my teeth and my name whispered softly from a hallway. I checked my phone. A new voicemail. No number. Just a recording of my own voice, smiling. "Why won't you come back and play?" The Appalachian campground with rules you can't break. The rules were stapled to the board like an afterthought. Faded paper. Curling edges. Someone had written them in black marker instead of printing them, which should have been my first warning. I found them at the trailhead of a small campground tucked deep in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. No cell service. No ranger station. Just 6 campsites and a forest that swallowed sound. The top of the page read, "Overnight campers, read carefully. Rule number 1, do not respond to voices after dark." I laughed when I read it. I shouldn't have. Rule number 2, if you hear footsteps circling your tent, stay still. Rule number 3, if someone calls your name from the trees, no matter who it sounds like, do not answer. The rules didn't explain why. They didn't explain what would happen if you broke them either. Just a final line at the bottom, written harder than the rest, like the marker had nearly torn the paper. Do not leave your campsite between 12 o'clock and 3 a.m. I remember checking my watch. It was 5:42 p.m. Plenty of time, I thought. The campground was quiet in a way that felt practiced. No birds. No insects. Just wind brushing through the leaves in slow waves. I chose Site 4, close to the tree line. The ground there was unnaturally flat, like it had been packed down repeatedly over many years. As I set up my tent, I noticed something carved into the fire ring stones. Names. Dozens of them. Some crossed out. Some not. Every uncrossed name ended with the same note. Left camp after dark. Night fell fast. By 9 p.m., the forest was pitch black beyond the firelight. The silence pressed in so hard my ears rang. I kept thinking about the rules, how specific they were, like they'd been written by someone who learned them the hard way. At exactly 11:58 p.m., my fire died. Not burned out. Died. The flames collapsed inward, leaving smoking embers that refused to relight. My watch ticked over to midnight. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow. Measured. Circling my tent. The footsteps didn't rush me. That was the worst part. They moved slowly, deliberately, crunching leaves in a perfect circle around my tent. Each step stopped just long enough for me to wonder if it was over, then continued. I remembered rule number 2 and stayed completely still, barely breathing. My flashlight lay beside me, untouched. The tent fabric bowed slightly inward with each passing step, like whatever was outside was leaning closer every time it came around. Then it stopped. Right behind my head. Something pressed gently against the tent wall. Not a hand. Too wide. Too smooth. A voice spoke. Not loud. Not threatening. Calm. Familiar. "Hey," it said. "You forgot something at your car." It sounded exactly like my brother. Same tone. Same pause before speaking. Even the slight rasp in his voice from an old smoking habit. My chest tightened instinctively. I almost answered before remembering rule number 1. Do not respond to voices after dark. The voice sighed softly, disappointed. "I can wait," it said. "We've got time." My watch glowed faintly. 12:17 a.m. The footsteps resumed, but closer. This time they weren't circling. They were pacing back and forth along the side of the tent, dragging slightly, like one foot didn't bend properly. The ground creaked under uneven weight. I noticed another sound then, something heavier moving farther out, just beyond the fire ring. Multiple sets of footsteps. I realized with a sick drop in my stomach that the rules never said there would only be one. A new voice joined in. A woman this time. She used my name. Perfectly. I squeezed my eyes shut and counted seconds in my head. At 12:43 a.m., something brushed the zipper of my tent. Not pulling. Tracing. Like it was learning where the opening was. The voices stopped talking to me then, and started talking to each other. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. Curious. Patient. Like hunters deciding who would go first. That's when I heard the scream. It came from Site 2. Cut off almost immediately. Then silence. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. At exactly 3:01 a.m., everything stopped at once. The footsteps vanished. The pressure on the tent lifted. The forest sounds returned all at once. Crickets, wind, distant owls, as if someone had flipped a switch. I didn't move until sunrise. When I finally crawled out, Site 2 was empty. No tent. No gear. No footprints. Just a fire ring with a fresh name carved into the stone. My name. Not crossed out. I went straight to the ranger station. It sat 5 miles down the mountain road, lights on but doors unlocked, like they'd been expecting someone. A single desk lamp illuminated stacks of binders and a thick, handwritten logbook lying open in the center. No ranger in sight. No cameras. No radio noise. The last entry was dated 2 nights earlier. Incident report. Site 2. Camper heard responding to voices after midnight. Tent found empty. Fire cold. Name added to ring. My stomach turned. The entry above it mentioned Site 4. My site. I flipped through the pages. Decades of entries. Same pattern. Same times. Different names. Every few years, the rules changed slightly, adjusted based on what didn't work. One entry from a ranger in the 1970s was underlined repeatedly. They don't take you right away. They practice with your voice first. Another page explained why rule number 4 existed. Between 12 o'clock and 3 a.m., the boundary is thin. Anyone who leaves their site is assumed to be volunteering. I checked my watch. 2:47 a.m. I hadn't realized how late it was. Footsteps echoed outside the station. Slow. Unhurried. A voice drifted through the open doorway. "Hey," it said gently. "You can come out now. It's safe." It was my voice. Perfectly copied. I backed away from the door, knocking over a chair. The logbook fell open to the final page. Written in fresh ink, still wet, was a rule I hadn't seen before. Rule number 7. If you hear your own voice, it's already too late. The footsteps stopped at the threshold. Something stepped into the light. It wore my face wrong, stretched slightly, eyes too reflective, smile a fraction too wide. Behind it, more shapes waited just out of sight, practicing sounds. Laughs. Words. Names. "I did great," it said proudly. "I sound just like you now." I don't remember running. I only remember waking up on the road at sunrise, miles from the campground, shoes muddy, throat raw like I'd been screaming all night. The ranger station was gone when I went back. So was the campground. So were the rules. Last night, my phone rang at 12:14 a.m. The caller ID showed my name. I didn't answer. The voicemail came anyway. It was me, whispering softly, practicing. "Hey, it's safe now. You can come out." I never go camping anymore. But sometimes, in the quiet, I hear footsteps circling my bed. Waiting. If this story made you feel uncomfortable, that's not an accident. Subscribe now, because the next campground story is even worse. And comment "I'm still here" if you'd never survive a night like this.